Today I wanted to today I want to talk about something real simple. I wanted to talk about the egg prices because I decided I work at a grocery store. I keep hearing complaints about how high the eggs are locally in North Carolina, and I was kind of curious what's going on. I mean, as far as I have heard, a lot of what I have heard has been, oh, the Avery flu is really jumping up the prices, and then a simple Google search. I kind of wanted to go through a few things. So first thing it showed me was this. Reuters. High egg prices should be investigated. U.S. Farm Group says. So I found this fairly interesting myself. I said, "What do you mean, farm group? What's a farm group?" So I'm like, "Okay." So let me read through this, and it was a letter from Farm Action, which is some kind of nonprofit, and they're asking the FTC to examine high egg prices for signs of price gouging from the top egg companies. The Farmers Group says it's never been higher. And the U.S. regulators and farmers and industry have often argued in recent years about the power of top agricultural firms to set prices and drive up what consumers pay for groceries. Talking about when beef skyrocketed in 2021. Now, without going back, I guarantee you I could probably find some more articles saying it's all about profiteering. And we all know a lot of that has to do more with supply chain issues around COVID, getting feed, getting diesel, getting things like that. Now, here's what I found interesting. I wanted to see what they were pointing to specifically. And so it says here the Cal-Maine Foods, which controls 20% of the egg market, reported quarterly sales up 110 and gross profits up more than 600%. Now, some people are going to see the profits up 600% and go, oh my God, they're profiting so much money. But the word they're forgetting here is gross. Gross. That's not what they're taking home. That's not what it's after their expenses. So I found this interesting. So in it links to the actual egg letter specifically from Farm Action, which I'll go ahead and pull up and show you. Now this is actually kind of long and kind of wordy for what it is. So I'm going to try and hit some of the key points that I found that was just absolutely wrong with this. And the first thing that I'm going to point you to is more like, again, it's just a price gouging by Cal-Maine Foods. And see, production and distribution of eggs in the United States is dominated by a handful of companies led by Cal-Maine Foods. They control 20% of the egg market and dwarfs its nearest competitor. They got citations for all this, and I didn't go through all these citations. I went through the ones I found that were most interesting, which is right here. It is known as the bellwether for the industry. The leading firms in the industry have a history of engaging in cartelistic conspiracies to limit production, split markets, and increase prices for consumers. And then you see this little 5 here. That little tiny 5 there for its citation right here. And the interesting thing about that is you click that, it brings you to this page, and what does this page have to tell you? That it was found the restraint to be reasonable. And it's funny that what they're claiming they conspired to do is one of the restraints involved an agreement to increase the size of the cages used for hens laying eggs. It was a conspiracy amongst the industry to increase the cage size for hens laying eggs. Now, it also goes on to say the court found that it was ineffective and thus caused no harm. There's a little bit of an argument here about whether or not that was actually congruent with the rest of existing law or incongruent with existing laws. I'm not a lawyer. I would leave that more for like Viva Fry or Barnes or someone like that. But just on the face of it and that one sentence, what was it? The restraints involved in an agreement to increase the cage size and considered an argument among competitors increase as lawful conspiracy, but that it wasn't, and that it was finding the intent was to restrict production. The jury instructions conflated the issues whether there was conspiracy to restrain and the issue of whether the conspiracy had in fact caused any reduction in production. Like, okay, they found a conspiracy, and I mean, maybe there's something to be said there. I'm not exactly an egg expert. Maybe we should ask the Beanie Man, or maybe some other farmers, and see what they have to say about doing that. But wait a minute. I already got that. So here's my Fox 8. It's a local news station. Not entirely sure for what area exactly. Oh, Greensboro. So it's actually in my triad area of North Carolina. Now, it's kind of just talking about the prices going up and the CDC, the risk general from avian flu is very low, so there's no food issues. And it's kind of asking the question of what exactly is going on. And the best way to go look is, WXII 12, NBC, local for my area, the Triad area, actually asked this question. And then I'm in a rural area. There are a lot of farms around here. Maybe I should go ask some of the more farmers about it. But I've kind of already talked to various ones about, why things go up, especially being at a grocery store. I talked to the guys, the truckers coming from the warehouse, and I've got some of the guys from the Food Lion warehouses that actually come to my store, and I just kind of chat with them to see what they see. And here's the interesting thing: we all know diesel prices have went way up, and feed prices have went way up. I mean, they're almost triple in pretty much any store you go to. I kind of know this because I go shopping around. I tend to work near a feed store. I go in a feed store to get salt for my girlfriend for her career. And I don't mean like just table salt. I mean like 50-pound bags of salt is important for what she does. Now, I find it interesting because here it's very open, and a lot of this is straight up saying what I'm thinking, which is we've all been dealing with the backlog of what initially was a COVID distribution problem. So gas prices, feed prices, transportation prices have all gone up, and they haven't caught up. And they're saying they don't exactly know why. And then you had the bird flu outbreak, which a lot of people are talking about just in the last few months. But you got to remember, this actually started all the way back in 2021. Now, a lot of this is going on 2022, and they're talking about it. But that doesn't even cover the whole picture, because I remember reading the stories from 2021. I probably should have pulled those up, but I didn't. Maybe I'll link some down below so everyone can see it. This has been going back for 2 years. We've lost an enormous amount of chickens. Now, here's the interesting thing. The letter does try to cover that. And where was it? Here we go. The first case of avian flu that they're talking about in February 22 in Delaware last year, which again isn't true because this was going on in 2021 as well. Over the ensuing spring, avian flu outbreaks would be reported in 10 states and result in 30 million egg-laying hens dead. And they want to say after the end of May, however, avian flu discoveries would slow down dramatically. And then I went to their citation of 12, and I don't find that anywhere in the report. I don't know what they're talking about. And then it says, notably, no hen loss was reported after beginning of June except due to sporadic outbreaks in September. The total number of eggs lost in avian flu in 2022 was around 43 million birds. So they're actually talking about, in the first season, 30 million eggs. And they're like, it slowed down by a lot. Right? My definition of it slowing down by a lot wouldn't have been another 13 million over the rest of the year. So that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, then they're going on to say, let's see, where was it? So this is actually the chart, retail egg purchases. So here's an interesting thing, supply and demand. This red one is 2021. This gray one is 2019 to 2021. And then this blue you see is 2022's, going up till about August, September. Interesting thing that I found about that is you can see the purchase of it going way the fuck down. It's way below average, which would seem retarded, but it's in the fact, like, eggs aren't something that's just non-perishable. Can't keep them around forever. So if you see a drop in demand, then you're going to end up with a lot of waste. Now, another thing that, again, this FTC document points to is the number is their gross profits again, which I find interesting that it wants to talk about the gross profits of specifically this company. And they're like, it's too much. Here it is. It says the company's gross margins likewise increased steadily from a little over 19% in the first quarter, 45% year over year, to nearly 40% in the last quarter. It says, notably, Cal-Maine's gross profits increased in lockstep with rising egg prices through every quarter of the year, going from nearly 92 in the quarter ending in February 26 to approximately 195 in May 28th. Now, I find this interesting because does anybody know exactly what happened February to May last year? Because I do. I absolutely do. It caused me huge amounts of problems because I went from spending $25 in gas to fill up for the week to $50 in gas. And that was gas. It's not diesel, which is what a lot of these transportations would have used, would have been diesel. So explain that exactly to me. We're talking about, they shouldn't have had this much of a, again, gross profit, but of course it went up. Their expenditures increased exponentially. Their gas prices for transportation would have doubled. The prices to pay the truckers and the trucking companies to transport these things would have doubled. Their price for the fuel for running around their farm would have doubled. The price of feed has, I'd have to bring up the statistics, but I'm going to roughly say has tripled since 2020. What are you supposed to do with that? Are your gross profits supposed to stay the same? Is your sales numbers supposed to stay the same despite the fact that the entire thing has just went way up? That makes no sense. Now, of course, they're calling again for the FTC to take action and restore competition and abusive price gouging, but they haven't shown that there's been any price gouging. They just want to... Here's the other thing. So if I go back to that article, they're not talking about acts of God. This specific farmer they're interviewing is not talking about acts of God. And I never see that anywhere in there. And I'm sure when they cite it, it's some random person. And I'll bring that citation up in a second. But it says his farm is local, grass-fed. Been dealing with the backlog of what was initially a COVID distribution problem. Again, the cost of chicken has gone up, the cost of incubation has gone up, the price of postage has gone up. There are all these issues, even to make the labels go on the egg carton. And that makes sense because, again, we're having a labor market shortage. So the cost of labor is going up and up and up. And the media wants to brag about this. We all want to brag about this. Hey, it's great. It's great. All of our wages are going up. Yeah, but the cost of doing business is going up because of that. So the cost of manufacturing is rising. The price of diesel has went up exponentially. It's came down in the last few months, but not by a lot. I mean, we're talking about the difference between $3.50 and $2.90. I mean, okay, great. That's for gas in my local area. That's the difference between $50 a week for me and $35 a week for me. I mean, hey, I need the $15 a week. It's useful to me. But at the same time, you're not talking about a lot, especially when you're talking about still diesel was at one point almost 7 locally. I think it's down to about 6 now, a little under 6. But you're talking about tractor trailers that use so much fuel, it's insane. You're not talking about, it's 30, 40, 50 miles to a gallon out of an 18-wheeler. You're probably talking about like 12. So this is going to be an issue. And to say it's just because some people want to price gouge, well, I'm not exactly opposed to that, but I haven't seen any evidence in this. Now, going back to this egg letter, I wanted to again check the citation. Let's look back at this letter. I wanted to see the citation for this act of God thing, which is right here, and it's 26. So I want to go ahead and read that. Beyond the avian flu out, no other supply chain disruption or increase in input costs justifies the dominant egg producers' more than threefold price hike. Although increases in feed and fuel costs have held up by some as primary reasons for the near tripling of wholesale egg prices over the past year, the dominant producer's course of business documents suggests these claims have little merit. Now, for some reason, they're using the act of God citation there, which I find a little bit ridiculous because it's not even where they actually claimed act of God somewhere in this document. I know I read it earlier, so we're just going to skip on to check out this citation, and we're going to check it live with me because, I had nothing to hide. Now I find it interesting. So let's see what Hajing Pan says to say. Act of God, the price of eggs is soaring due to unprecedented crisis, trade strategist says. Here's 2 surging food stocks to help buck the slumping market. So they're using a citation of a Yahoo Finance article of some trade strategists. It's not actually the farmers. So I kind of find this to be ridiculous. So right here it is. Well, it's no secret that inflation has been running hot. The drastic increase in egg prices recently still took many people by surprise. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics show that the average price of a dozen large eggs in the U.S. reached $4.25 in December 2022, more than doubling the $1.78 consumers were paying a year earlier. Well, again, inflation. I mean, we've had 8% on record inflation, and then again the rising fuel costs. Bird flu could be a main driver behind the price increase, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A highly pathogenic avian influenza, first detected in January 22, has resulted in the death of nearly 58 million chickens and turkeys. Well, that's actually kind of interesting because the other article was saying, or the letter was saying 46 million. This is saying 58 million. I would need to actually double check that because if that's true, that's almost double from the numbers they were saying and during the spring. That was specifically 32 million, I think is what it said. And now it's at 58. So it almost doubled that number by the end of the year, at which point it seems like that was pretty on point. Anyway, let's go on with the article. It says Brian, I can't read that. Brian, a global trade strategist at egg suppliers Eggs Unlimited, called the situation unprecedented. It's a supply disruption, act of God type stuff. So they're pulling an article from a comment from a trade strategist of egg suppliers and acting like any of the companies or any of the farmers are actually saying that. I mean, here, let's keep looking at Cal-Maine. I mean, they're talking about Cal-Maine right here. The chief, here we go, the company's chief financial officer from Cal-Maine, he's quoted as saying that significantly higher selling prices, our enduring focus on cost control, and our ability to adapt to inflationary market pressures led to improved profitability overall with a gross profit margin of 39% for the second quarter, another record. Of course it's a record. The price of everything's going up. Not just for us, but for these suppliers and the farms and producers as well. I mean, this is like saying, "Oh, you're pick an industry. It doesn't matter what you pick. Trucking's gross profits have went up. Well, of course, because now they're having to charge double because the fuel prices have doubled. Like, what are you talking about? That's not even a good point." Now, they're saying it in a press release. Anything else interesting in this article? No. So we're not even. I mean, there's nothing to this citation. It says it's not like it's saying. It's not like it's actually saying anything interesting here. So, what is this? What is this article even about? I don't understand where these guys are coming from. So the last thing that I actually wanted to go over to was pretty simple. The last thing I wanted to go over is, who is Farm Action actually about? So when was it founded? Who are these people? What is this? Now, I find it interesting. They're it's a legislative. They're looking to affect legislation and elections and research and policy development. Now, like, who even are these? These are just some random. It's random people. It's not even like this is actually a real farming group. How many of these people actually own it? Now, I haven't had the time to like super look at this, and I really wanted to look at the Our Team portion of this. And who are we talking about? A bunch of... God damn it. So, let's look at a few things. I want to see who these people even are. So what do we got here? We got join Farm Action to raise awareness. And she's the senior policy advocate. Holds a bachelor's in evolutionary biology. Food system reform for a decade. Brings expertise in local food systems and distribution, ag, nonprofit development, and food entrepreneurship. Sounds like bullshit. Well, or organic vegetable form. Sounds like bullshit. Sounds like just some random she, her. See, they got their pronouns in this. What kind of woke bullshit is this? That is not some traditional. It's not some like actual farmers. Okay, at least not her. So let's go on. Communications coordinator focused on further engaging with the organization's work. Sustainable food and ag system. I mean, global environmental studies. Do these people realize there are actual agriculture degrees? Like, there's Virginia Tech's an excellent example. Having been from the mountains of Virginia, I know for a fact Virginia Tech has one of the top agriculture like degrees education in the U.S. They've always had one of the top ag programs. They always will. These people are from Harvard with an evolutionary biology degree. That's got absolutely nothing to do with farming. Okay, and then environmental science and policy. Like, what even is that? Has absolutely zero to do even with her own position. That's not even a communications coordinator. This is supposed to be someone who's discussing this stuff. She's cultivated skills in digital communications, program development, and creative storytelling. Okay. Free time tending to her urban vegetable garden, cooking new recipes, and working on her photography. So that's... Okay, Jessica. We're just going to leave that alone. Now we got Webster Davis, Senior Policy Advisor. He's the owner of Triple D Produce in Missouri. He worked with various FFA groups for vegetable starts, encouraged youth to pursue food production as an occupation. He worked with Lincoln University as a mentor for minorities in agricultural, natural resources, and related sciences. At least... he's worked in agriculture or had something to do with agricultural education. He's a proud ambassador for Missouri AGR Ability Program, which is dedicated to helping farmers return to their passions and livelihoods after an accident. Interesting. Veteran, having turned 18 years old in the Marine Corps boot camp and served almost 23 years in the Marine Corps Reserve and National Guard. He's now a member of the Farmer Veteran Coalition. He conceived and is chairman of the state of Missouri's NAACP Agriculture Committee, whose goal is to increase awareness of ag issues and opportunities. Yeah, I got nothing bad to say. Local treasurer of the Union local where he works at the Callaway nuclear plant. Seems like a busy guy. Seems like he does a lot of things. I mean, of everyone I've read so far, this is the only legitimate person, even remotely, in the board of Farm Action. You have Angela Huffman, who's the VP, Board of Directors and Staff, co-founder of Farm Action, provides strategic thought and direction for the organization's effort to integrate research, communication, and advocacy towards successful policy reforms. She was previously the Communications and Research Director for Organization for Competitive Markets. Helped lead the regional organization to become a national voice in anti-monopoly issues in ag and food. Led numerous institutions, retailers, and food buyers to shift their purchasing toward farms that meet the highest standards for fairness and sustainability. What is that? And profiled by The Hill, NPR, Fox News, and cited by the New York Times, Forbes, Washington Post, Politico, and others. She holds a master's in public policy management. So, a policy advocate, a politico in the agricultural space, again pretending she knows something about agriculture. She probably does know a little bit. But what is their Northwest Ohio homestead? I mean, how much does she actually do that? With this much stuff to do, there's no way she's homesteading. But I don't know her. Maybe Angela. I mean, Angela sounds at least better than the first two I'm reading, but not all that promising. Senior writer and content creator. Sounds like a social media guy. So D, she, her. Again with the pronouns. Join the Farm Action Team to raise awareness about the organization's core issues and drive engagement toward equitable, sustainable, and family farm-centered solutions. Draws from her background in strategic communications, creative writing, and design to craft resonant narratives. Diverse sectors, energy, anti-hunger, ag. So she's a bachelor's. She holds a BA from Grand Valley State University and a master's from Washington University, but they don't say what. Sounds like she's just a social media manager. Okay, I don't know what that has to do with farming, but okay. I mean, important if you're going to do this type of stuff, but, I mean, it doesn't really help the farmers. Joe Maxwell, co-founder of Farm Action. His work on a vision of an inclusive U.S. economy that works, providing for all people, providing them an equitable opportunity to share in the prosperity they help build, rather than an economy that works for just a handful of individuals and multinational corporations. I kind of agree with that, but at the same time, just kind of comes off as a socialist. Joe has held key positions in both political and initiative petition campaigns. During the last election cycle, he assisted presidential U.S. Senate and U.S. House Rep candidates in developing their antitrust, ag, and food policy positions. I mean, that's interesting because that means he's the guy who's helped come up with the exact problem that we have now. Holds degrees in agricultural economics and law. Weird combination. Served as Missouri state legislator, Missouri lieutenant governor, and is retired from the Army where he's Army National Guard, where he served as first sergeant in the field artillery. Nothing necessarily bad to say, except for that first paragraph makes him just kind of sound woke and socialisty. But again, I also don't necessarily disagree with, pulling farming home. Next guy's legal counsel. I don't know why we have a legal counsel, but hey, whatever. Every company needs it. He's principal of Basil, rural community development law firm based in Paris, Texas. Hey, Paris, Texas. I got a friend over there. Serves as Farm Action's legal counsel. In this role, he advises Farm Action on antitrust and other areas of law. Practice focuses on helping rural governments, business, and community banks work together to foster community wealth and local entrepreneurial ecosystems, inspired by the anti-monopoly heritage of Northeast Texas. Leads his firm's pro bono research and advocacy initiatives focused on reversing the growth of absentee ownership in rural economies and the consolidation of financial power in large metro headquartered banking. Hey, that guy actually sounds like a pretty cool guy. You know what, Basil? You're pretty cool, so I got nothing to say bad about you. Let's see. We got the Secretary of Treasurer and Board of Directors, Aneem Steele, co-founder, past executive director of the Real Food Generation, which harnesses the power of youth and universities to build a fair and sustainable food system. A few food programs he helped start. He led national initiatives at the Food Project in Boston, consulted with Economic Development Assistant Consortium, and developed employment training programs at the Bowery Residence Committee. Holds a BA in astrophysics and history, a master's degree in public policy. So again, a guy who has no at least educational background in farming at all. Sounds like he just had a public policy degree. I mean, that means he's just a political activist. He's a politico in a farming space. Okay. That's kind of useless. It doesn't do anything for actual farmers. So let's move on to the next guy. Joe Van Wy, Policy and Outreach Director at Farm Action. He works to implement policies. He spent 7 years working in the House of Reps, both for the personal office of Congressman David Cecilian, Republican 1 district, or Rhode Island 1 district, and most recently the House Judiciary Subcommittees on Antitrust, Commercial, and Administrative Law. In Congress, Joe developed expertise in antitrust and regulatory issues, as well as a passion for fighting concentrated power wherever it appears in the economy. Also worked on a number of political campaigns at the state, local levels, and national level. Holds a BA in poli-sci. He's based out of D.C. He's not working to build a food fair. Spends his time running a long-standing Dungeons and Dragons game and sampling the excellent craft breweries and farm-to-table restaurants in the D.C. area. Okay, so dude's just a politico. Again, just a politico. That's all he is. Elbow-greasing politician, working on campaigns and working for the offices of various House reps and local and state, not just a politico. Has no real knowledge or firsthand anything within actual ag. And the last person's the Senior Program Director, Kathy Becker. Kathy Becker joined FA to help create a food and ag system that works for all people on the planet, not just powerful corporations. As the Senior Program Director, she provides leadership and direction for FA team and development, delivery, and success of its programs. Based in Columbus, Ohio, longtime local and state leader on sustainability. Most recently is the Executive Director of sustainability nonprofit Simply Living. She oversaw fundraising, program development, communications, staff management. Extensive experience in both legislative and initiative petition actions covering various issues to include agriculture, animal welfare, and renewable energy. She chaired the Ready for 100 Ohio campaign, asking cities to commit to 100% renewable energy. For moving into nonprofit and advocacy, had a 25-year career in journalism, communications, and public relations. Okay, so she's an environmental activist and a journalist. What does that possibly have to do with agriculture? This is what I'm saying. So these are the people leading the Farm Action political campaign, not an actual advocacy group for actual agriculture. These people are just about policy for, in their own words, making a more equitable food system. I'm not necessarily opposed to that, but this is exactly what's wrong with this group. These people they're not farmers. They're not, except, well, minus one. There isn't like 10 generations of farming going back, farming their land, homesteading, doing anything like that. You're not talking about people who are from the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia or the mountains of Georgia, or talking about the people who lived in the plains in Virginia or the Triad, North Carolina area of farming. Like, these people are mostly from D.C. with degrees in shit that has absolutely nothing to do with agriculture. So, just figured I'd bring all this up because I found the entire thing kind of ridiculous. In conclusion, egg prices are up. It sucks. There's some contention as whether it's going to go down or go up. I think it's going to have a lot to do with the fuel prices coming in and the feed prices coming in and the manufacturing labor prices, because as we all know, everyone's getting paid more right now. Labor prices are definitely increasing. So until it all stabilizes, probably not a lot's going to move. A lot of the agriculture and food's probably going to go up, not down. But we'll have to wait and see. All right, guys. Y'all have a great day.